Welcome back to the Big Weekend Show. Former President Trump on a winning streak after dominating victory over Joe Biden in the debate. And now he's about to make his most consequential decision yet, his vice president. Christina Coleman has more.
Gianno, there are lots of reports that Donald Trump plans to announce his running mate before or during the Republican National Convention, which starts on July 15th in Milwaukee. Take a look at the reported top contenders. They include Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and Senators Marco Rubio of Florida and Tim Scott of South Carolina. They have all been out in full force showing support for Donald Trump in plenty of TV interviews, and they have a lot to talk about after President Joe Biden's rough debate performance Thursday night. Take a listen to Senator Vance on Fox News Sunday today.
How could anybody think, having seen Donald Trump on the debate stage, that he couldn't do the job? Obviously he could, and that's ultimately what the debates really showed, is that we have two candidates, one who can't do the job, one who has failed to do the job, and that's Joe Biden.
And GOP VP contender Doug Burgum did an interview with Jesse Waters on Friday, criticizing Biden's debate performance and his response to key issues facing voters.
Joe Biden had no answer on inflation, no answer on the border. These are the issues that are affecting every American every day.
So again, the Republican VP contenders are out in full force showing their support for Donald Trump as we all wait to see who he will choose as his running mate. Gianna?
Christina, thanks. The stakes couldn't be higher for who Trump's pick for vice president is. Nikki Haley is trying to warn the former president that he may not even wind up facing Joe Biden in November. She told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "They're going to be smart about it. They're going to bring somebody younger. They're going to bring somebody vibrant. They're going to bring someone tested." And Kennedy, with that quote in mind, and I know you save the world every week on your podcast.
Thank you, Jono.
Who do you believe to be the best pick for Donald Trump at this point? Because really, he doesn't need a vice president, is what it seems.
No,
like people just love him.
Before Thursday, this was the most consequential decision in the entire election, and that is who is Trump's VP going to be, and that is what the election will hinge on. You know, Katie was talking about that very slim section of voters who are undecided, and that could be something that really pushes people over the edge, because I think there's this feeling with, you know, both candidates, especially with Joe Biden now, if he stays on the ticket, that they may not last the entire 4-year term. And obviously President Trump will only be a one-term president this time around, and that makes his pick even more important. I tend to think that he likes the governors a little bit better. So I think that Doug Burgum is higher on the list than people give him credit for. I think that Glenn Youngkin is up there, not as high as Burgum. And I also think that Marco Rubio has shown his loyalty, his toughness. And when you look at someone like Rubio, who served with Kamala Harris when she was a senator, he would be very effective in a debate against her. And I think he would really relish that role.
I do agree on those points. And Katie, you know, there's this idea that he can pick someone that no one is even talking about. Yeah. And our very talented colleague, Tulsi Gabbard, she had some interesting things to say about this, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
In order to win, you have to be able to bring in people who may not already be with you or already be a part of your support base. This is important not only for the election to be able to bring in our fellow Americans, but it is also important to do the tough work that will follow should President Trump win, to be able to actually root out the rot of corruption that exists within permanent Washington, to root out the deep state.
I mean, I got to tell you, this is, she's an interesting person.
Yeah.
People have been talking about her. Yeah. She's brilliant. We have her on our air. Yeah. What do you think? Could she be somebody that he's thinking about?
She definitely has been someone he has thought about in the past. She hasn't been listed on these leaks that they've been putting out, but that doesn't mean that she couldn't be the one. We'll have to see. But she represents a very interesting type of voter who's emerged in America over the past really 4 years. But generally speaking, politics in America has changed.
Yes,
there are a lot of disaffected Democrats who do not like this far-left wokeness party that is anti-common sense. You have Tulsi Gabbard leading the charge on that. She was courageous enough to leave the Democratic Party. She does not consider herself a Republican. She's not part of the Republican Party. But when you look at the voters that each campaign has to get to win, the people who have not decided, she kind of represents the attitude towards Washington, D.C. and the disgust with the corruption on both sides of the political aisle and just what politics has been representing. But in terms of the people who are on the list, you know, the campaign has been looking for someone who could potentially actually carry the MAGA legacy and agenda forward to 2028 and win. So the Trump legacy continues in terms of what they want to do. Marco Rubio speaks Spanish. So the idea is that he could really go out and do a bunch of Spanish language interviews and get Hispanics to actually change their votes. And you've seen that historically, that Republicans are capable of bringing those people into the fold. And then finally, Doug Burgum looks like George Washington. So he would be a great presidential choice because Trump has said, I want someone who can be president. He definitely looks the part.
I have a question for you. I'm so sorry. Do you think that Tulsi kind of fills that RFK Jr.
Yes, absolutely.
vibe that disaffected voters?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Well, I mean, and to your point, politics
choice.
isn't as usual. I mean, the things have changed, especially, Jason, since you served in Congress. This isn't the same political system as we know it. It's been reshaped and reformed. What are your thoughts on who would be a great pick?
I think Americans are striving not to just have somebody that looks a certain way. I think they want
first
competence.
President of America?
Well, I think they want competence, and you got to have a good working relationship with Donald Trump. He wants somebody who is loyal to him and the MAGA agenda. There are two other people that should be on that list, and one is John Radcliffe, the former director of national intelligence. He was a former congressman from Texas, and he was a U.S. attorney. And the other one is Robert O'Brien, who still has, he just wrote kind of the definitive piece about peace through strength. He was his national security advisor, briefed the president on a regular basis, and a very good working relationship. Again, kind of looks like he's from Central Casting.
Yeah.
Those two have great working relationships, and I think he should be considered. I hope the president's thinking about them in those roles. If not, they're going to be pretty darn senior in the Trump administration.
And you're forgetting a third person, Jason Chaffetz.
No.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.